Hi there, it's Mark here again, and welcome to part 3 of my build guide for the Lancia 037 Rally on the TA02S chassis. We got this far last time, so we've got the front and the rear gearboxes with the suspension components attached, and in this video we'll be getting the chassis in the middle with all the electronics and getting it up on its wheels. So let's get cracking. So we're up to step 20 and time to open parts bag D. So this step is checking the RC equipment, and I know it might be tempting, but do not skip this step, because the most important thing we've got to do here is make sure all of the electronics are working. But most importantly, we've got to centre up the servo, make sure that's in neutral position, else it's going to throw the steering off when we're finished. So make sure you do get this part done. So it's simply a matter of getting your ESC, or electronic speed controller, plug in the control cable into port 2 of your receiver, plug your servo into port 1 and plug a battery in. Make sure you turn your transmitter on, then switch on your ESC. Make sure the trim setting on your transmitter is in neutral or in central position, and give the servo a throw from left to right a few times. Let it centre, and that's job done. Now that's all centred up, we can get on and do the servo saver. So get part C6 or C7, it will just be one that will fit your servo, one or the other, and then we've got to fit this onto the servo with that lug pointing straight down as you look at it. You'll never get it exactly central, it'll always be off slightly to one side or the other, but yeah, as close as possible, and then that's when you can use the trim on your radio to centre it up when we're finished. So onto that you want to put on plastic part C3, which is kind of plastic spring, just clips over. Then you want plastic part C9, you can see there's a side with the webbing, and turn over, there's no webbing on the other side, and you want to insert your 5mm ball connector into that hole with the plain side of this plastic part. With that done, we can just pop that onto the servo saver. Then you've got your plastic washer, which is part C8, pop that in the top, and then whichever screw fits your servo. And then when you've got your screw in, it's a good idea just to check that the servo saver works, and you can do that by just turning the servo saver all the way till the servo comes to its end, and then if I can just show you in the light, you can just see the jaws opening up there when it gets to fully extended, and that's the servo saver doing its job. And that's the end of step 20. Step 21 is attaching the steering servo. So the first thing we need to do is put these plastic parts D4 onto the servo itself. Simply a case of washer and a 10x3 screw, and there's just the one screw holding each side. And as you can see, I'm replacing the standard self-tapping screws with hex head machine screws. You'll be fine with the standard screws, but I prefer these because they're easier to get in and out with the hex driver, and they don't rust. So attach one of those D4 parts, one on each side of the servo. Then get your chassis tub, and you've got these two holes here. So you've got the single hole, and then you've got a slot. So put the screw in the single hole first and the slot second. So it's a 3x10 screw in that hole on its own. And when you've got that in place, you can put the other 3x10 with a washer into the slotted hole, like so. And to finish this step, simply get this top plate, which is part E3, fits on like so, and then it's just 4 3x10 screws. One's going to go down in that hole, one down in that hole, and then one in each corner at the back. So just get those done up, and that's the end of step 21. In step 22 we're going to install the RC equipment, which is your ESC and your receiver, and fit in the switch. You get double-sided tape included in the kit, so I'm going to use that. And just make sure that when you fit the ESC, fit it in line with the edge of this liner on the top bracket, because the prop shaft's got to go down this side here, so you've got to leave space for that. So yeah, make sure you don't overlap that edge. And if you've got one of these Tamiya ESCs like me, you're going to have to take this cover off the switch like that. Pop the switch through the hole. Then you've got these tiny 2x8 screws and washers, and we're going to use these to fix that switch back in place. It's a bit fiddly, try and get it on the end of your screwdriver. It does help if you've got a magnetic screwdriver. So it is a bit fiddly, but there they are in place. And all you've got to do to finish this step is stick on your receiver in that position. In step 23 we're making up the steering rod, so first off get part C2, which is smaller of the plastic pieces, and then you want your 5mm ball. So you've got this raised part at the top and the ball joint goes underneath. Then part C4, again make sure you get it the right way around in this orientation, and then 5mm ball goes in the top there. And don't go mad over tightening these because you will strip the plastic, and the other ball joint goes on the other side, and it should look like this when you're finished. Now for the two steering rods themselves, and be careful here because these parts are different. So you've got this one here which is an 18mm bar, which is the shorter of the two, and you need parts D3 to screw onto that, and they're the ones with like a lip or a shoulder on them. So just screw it into the bar, and when you get them both on you should be able to just screw them against each other until there's a 5mm gap between them, as it shows in the diagram. And you can use that because it is to scale, to make sure you've got it the right length. So make sure you've got one of the holes in that alignment and then the other one at 90 degrees to it, like so. Then you've got your 23mm bar, and then you've got your parts D2. It's exactly the same process, just do it up, and this time we need a 9mm gap between the two. And this time both the holes are in the same orientation. And it's calling this steering part B, as you can see here. The other one's A, and for B make 2. On step 24 you're going to need your tie rod, and then get your parts aligned as it shows in the diagram. Get your steering rod with the 90 degree difference in the ends there. Just pop that on there. Then the arms with the D2s, pop that on the other one, like so. So the other one, again, just get this part B, the one with the two eyes in line, just pop that on, and then all we need to do is to get that tie rod in position. Simple case of just threading it through that little hole and giving it a turn. Same for the other side. Pop the bar in, give it a turn. That's in position, so that's your steering linkage. And on to step 25, where we're going to attach that steering linkage. So first of all we're going to attach this part to the servo. It does say use pliers, but it's quite easy to pop on. Then you want your step screw and washer. Put the step screw through the pivot there, and then put your washer on the bottom. Get that located in the hole in the chassis. Let's give that a nip up. And for the side, just get rid of the step screw. Pop that through your steering assembly. Put a washer on the back and mount that onto this hole here in the chassis. And that's your steering assembly mounted. Just give it a quick check. Step 26 is attaching the rear gearbox, and this is a really simple step. You basically just got to locate the gearbox onto the chassis, and then you've just got 4 3x10 screws. So we've got one in each of these two holes here. So one in there and one in there, and then turn it over, and it's simply one in that hole and one in that hole. So I'll get these done up and plug the motor wires in. On to step 27, which is attaching the front gearbox. And don't forget, you've got to put in your prop shaft. I've gone for an upgraded version, as you can see, but it's the same fitment. So just make sure you insert the prop shaft into the rear prop joint. Get your front gearbox, you've got to insert that joint into the front gearbox, and then just locate that into place. And now it's just 3 screws, one in there, one in there, and one in there. 3x10s again. Just get those done up, and it's a nice easy step, is that. And of course, not forgetting to pop on your steering arms onto those ball joints. like so. And as it shows in the diagram here, you can use the adjustable tie rods to make an adjustment to the steering to make sure that your axles are in line, in a straight line as across like that. Step 28 is attaching the front bumper. There's this huge thing here, and basically it's just 3x12 screws. You can see the holes there, they need to line up. So there's your 3 12mm long screws holding that bumper on, and you also need to finish fitting the front gearbox on with 2 3x10s that go in those 2 holes there. Step 29 is the wheel assembly, which is basically just putting the foams in the tyres and putting the tyres on the wheel rims. You can see it shows the front and the rear assembly separately, but they are both the same process. It's just that the rear wheels have got these kind of bolt heads around the rim, if you can see those, and the front haven't got those. So these are the foams, and it does say that you should glue the ends together like so. Put some glue on these, but I've used these kind of foams loads of times before and never had any trouble without gluing them, so I'm not going to bother gluing them. So I'll just show you what I do. Simply get one of your tyres and insert the end into the tyre, and then you've got to kind of work your way around, just pulling the sides of the tyre out. Make sure you get that foam firmly seated inside, so just work it all the way around. And then the important thing is to make sure that the 2 ends line up nice and neatly. I don't know if you can tell, but you can see in there now, you might just about see that they line up kind of exactly and there's no gap whatsoever, so that's ready to go on the rim. I don't think it matters which way around the tyre goes with these. So just insert the one side first, making sure that you don't catch that foam and pull it out the tyre. Just pull it across, make sure that's seated on the rim properly, that side, and then push the other side over. That's how I do it anyway. That's all feeling good. It doesn't say in the instructions to put any glue in, but we'll run it first and see if the tyres do come off the rims. Obviously if they do, we'll be putting a bit of glue down in that rim there. But like I say, that'll do for now. And it's exactly the same for the other 3 wheels. Step 30 is attaching the front wheels, but you've also got to attach the front body posts. So it's just these parts D6. You need a small R-pin, and that goes through the second hole up from the bottom, like that. Then you've got your little black O-ring, 3mm O-ring, and you've just got to force that over the top of the post. And I think that's to stop the body from rattling around on the post with that hard body. So just push that down with your nails best you can, and that's ready to go on. That's just with one 3x15 tapping screw. And that goes into the top of the shock tower, like so, and obviously the same for the other side. Fitting the wheels is a piece of cake. You just need the little pin there, you can just about see it, and that goes through the axle. Then part A1, your 12mm hex, just make sure you get that lined up. It should fit flush up against the bearing. And get your front wheel, which are obviously the ones without those bolts, fake bolts around the outside of the rim. Just line it up onto the hex and fit on your flanged lock nut. Repeat for the other side. Step 31 is attaching the rear wheels, and obviously the rear body posts, which are D10. Which are these? And it also shows attaching with part H8, which I had trouble finding because I found them on this part here, which is like the body parts set. You've got your mirrors and your wipers and so on. So yeah, those are parts H8, so we need to cut those off. And you also need 2 little 5mm hoop slug or tubes that you need to cut off the larger piece that you get. So yeah, chop those 2 pieces off, 5mm long, and as you'll see they'll go over the top of the body post. And again, that's to cushion the body, I think. So get your 2 parts and put them together like that, and they fit onto the rear shock tower with these long 3x25 screws. So just pop that through and mount on the top holes of the shock tower. And obviously do the same for the other side, like so. And then it's simply a case of fitting the rear bumper, which is E2, which is this, and it just mounts into that central hole there in the rear gearbox. So it fits on there with a 3x10 screw. Right, and the last step for me, let's get this thing up on the wheels, is again fit the rear wheels in exactly the same way as we did the front ones. So just you pop your little pin through, your hex adapter on, and the rear wheel. So we'll get that done up and get the last wheel on. And okay, so here she is, and there was one final step for finishing the chassis, which was simply fitting the antenna tube holder there, one screw, and the battery clip, which is this thing here. And that's that, job done. Another fantastic Tamiya chassis finished, and I've got to say it really was a pleasure to put together as usual. Just a quick drop test. Yep, no bounce whatsoever, so that extra long suspension I've fitted seems to be doing its job. And all that remains now is to get that lovely body finished and the cockpit that comes with it. So we'll call this part of the build guide to a close now, and I hope you join me on part 4 where we get going on this fantastic bodywork. Thanks for watching. Bye.